Welcome to True Echo, where every story reveals a deeper truth. Today's story is not just about high school drama, it's about courage in the face of cruelty, resilience when the odds are stacked, and a father's quiet strength. What happens when a young black cheerleader faces bullying, not knowing her father is a Navy SEAL? You're about to find out. Jania Cole's fingers trembled slightly as she tied the last ribbon on her ponytail. She stood just off the edge of Crestwood High's gleaming gymnasium, where the Friday night lights bled gold into the evening sky. Her uniform, navy blue trimmed with white and gold, hugged her tall, athletic frame. This was supposed to be the best moment of her sophomore year, her debut as the school's first black cheerleader. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, but beneath the noise, Jania heard everything else: the whispers, the forced chuckles from the sidelines, and the snide, coded comments that weren't quite loud enough to report but stung like open wounds. She spotted him again, Tyler Richardson, the school's star linebacker. His arms were crossed, his expression smug as ever. He didn't say anything yet, but she knew it was coming. He'd made it clear during tryouts that he didn't think she belonged. The squad formed a line, ready to run out onto the field. Jania took her spot in the center, as designated by Coach Wills, and forced herself to smile. As they began their cheer, she poured her soul into each move, each chant. She wasn't just performing. She was claiming her space. And that's when she heard it. "Keep it down, Cole," someone muttered behind her. "You're throwing off the rhythm." She turned slightly. It was Casey, one of the senior girls. Another whisper from Tyler followed, "This ain't BT." Laughter snaked through the players on the bench. Jania bit her lip. She couldn't afford to cry. Not now. Not in front of them. When the game ended, Crestwood victorious, everyone celebrated, but Jania felt the cold chill of isolation. Teammates posed for pictures without her. The locker room filled with chatter and joy that seemed to bounce off a wall whenever she tried to join in. That evening at home, Jania barely touched her food. Her father, Commander Elijah Cole, sat across the dinner table, watching her with sharp eyes. Elijah was quiet by nature, the kind of man whose silence could say more than a lecture. "You want to talk about it?" he finally asked, gently. Jania shook her head, but he waited. "They don't want me there," she whispered. "I thought if I worked hard enough, they'd see me. But all they see is, different." Elijah leaned forward. "You know what I see? A warrior. A trailblazer. And that scares people who live inside boxes." "But it's not fair," she snapped, tears stinging her eyes. "I worked twice as hard to make the squad." "Exactly," he said. "And that's why you can't quit now." The following Monday, Jania walked through the school doors with a newfound determination. Her father's words rang in her ears like a steady drumbeat: "You're a trailblazer. Don't quit." She held her head high, but even her best armor couldn't protect her from the subtle jabs and cold stares that awaited her. By third period, the school's gossip machine had already revved up. Someone had posted a blurry photo of her from the football game on Snapgram, captioned, "Cheering or just lost." The comments weren't kind. Jania tried to brush it off, but her stomach churned every time she checked her phone. Practice that afternoon was worse. During a complicated pyramid stunt, she was supposed to be the flyer, the one lifted into the air. But at the last second, Casey and another girl backed off their grip just enough to make her wobble and nearly fall. "You need to hold your core tighter," Casey said sharply, as if it were Jania's fault. Coach Wills looked concerned but didn't intervene. Jania wanted to say something, but her voice caught. She knew that calling them out would only make her seem like the angry black girl they already expected her to be. After practice, she went to the locker room to find something far worse than mockery waiting for her. Her uniform, her crisp, cleaned, school-issued cheerleading uniform, was crumpled in the corner of the bench, covered in slurs scrawled with permanent marker. "Go back to where you came from," one line said. Another word was so vulgar, Jania couldn't even process it at first. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She took a picture. Then she walked out without saying a word. That night, Elijah came home late from a meeting with the reserve unit. He found Jania sitting on the porch in sweatpants, her uniform folded beside her like a dead bird. "Did they hurt you?" he asked. She shook her head, then showed him the picture. Elijah's jaw tightened. He took a long breath, calm, deliberate, military-grade control. But Jania saw the fire in his eyes. "They think this is a game," he muttered. "What can we do?" she asked softly. He looked her straight in the eyes. "We fight back. But not the way they expect." The next day, Jania walked into school with the defaced uniform, and wore it. She didn't bother hiding the slurs. She let them show, loud and clear. Teachers tried to stop her, some even offered her a change of clothes, but she shook her head each time. "I want them to see what's happening." By lunchtime, the whispers grew louder, but this time, they weren't mocking her. They were shocked. Students who had previously stayed silent began asking questions. A few cheerleaders looked ashamed. Even some of the football players, those who had laughed the loudest, looked unsure now. Tyler, of course, was unfazed. He just smirked when he saw her. "Making a statement, huh?" "No," Jania said, her voice steady. "I'm making history." That moment, simple as it was, struck something deeper. Students began taking photos, sharing them with captions like "This isn't okay," "Stand with Jania," and "Do better, Crestwood." The post went viral overnight. By the time Elijah received a call from the principal's office the next morning, it wasn't to punish Jania, it was to schedule a meeting. But Elijah had something bigger in mind. "We're not just meeting with the principal," he told Jania. "We're going to the school board." "Won't that make things worse?" "For who?" Elijah asked. "You. Or the ones who did this to you?" The Crestwood High School board met every second Wednesday of the month, but this meeting was different. Word had spread, through student posts, parent group chats, and even local media. By 6 p.m., the auditorium was packed. Elijah Cole walked in wearing his dress uniform. Navy SEAL insignia gleamed on his chest, a silent declaration of the discipline, sacrifice, and service he had given this country. His stride was controlled, shoulders squared, and his expression unreadable. Jania walked beside him, her posture proud despite the tremor in her hands. She wore her cheerleading uniform again, yes, the one defaced with racial slurs, but this time it had been framed under a clear plastic sheet, evidence of the battle she'd been forced to fight. The room quieted when Elijah stepped up to the podium. "Good evening," he began, his voice calm, crisp, and every bit the commanding officer. "My name is Commander Elijah Cole. I've served this country for over 2 decades as a Navy SEAL. I've led men into war zones. I've defused bombs under pressure most people will never know." He paused. "But nothing prepared me for the sight of my 16-year-old daughter coming home in tears because her uniform, something she earned, had been vandalized with hate." Gasps echoed throughout the auditorium. Jania sat in the front row, eyes fixed on the floor. This isn't just about high school cruelty. This is a failure in leadership. A failure to create a culture of inclusion. A failure to act. He held up the picture of the defaced uniform. A collective silence fell. Some board members couldn't meet his gaze. "I am not here to demand vengeance," Elijah said. "I am here to demand accountability. You entrusted this school with my daughter's safety, and that trust was violated. I ask that this board publicly condemn what happened, initiate an independent investigation, and implement anti-racism education for all students and staff, mandatory." One board member tried to speak, but Elijah cut him off. "Respectfully, sir, this isn't the time to smooth things over. It's the time to take a stand." The room erupted into applause. Jania looked up. Teachers, students, even some of the football players were clapping. Not all of them, but enough to make her chest swell with something close to hope. That night, local news stations covered the meeting. Jania's story was on the 10 o'clock headlines. Reporters called her brave. But she knew real courage was quieter, like the moment she decided to walk through school halls in that ruined uniform. Like standing still while people laughed and pointed. Like telling the truth in front of a room full of people who weren't ready to hear it. The following morning, Jania received an unexpected text. From Coach Wills. Proud of you. Team meeting at 3 p.m. Be there. When she arrived at the gym later that afternoon, the rest of the squad was already assembled. Some looked away, embarrassed. Others offered tight smiles. Coach Wills stood in front, arms folded. I owe someone an apology, she said, her voice hoarse. Jania, I should have protected you. I failed. That ends now. She turned to the rest of the squad. We're making changes, starting with how we treat each other. If you have a problem with that, you're free to walk. No one moved. And for the first time in weeks, Jania felt like she could breathe. Later that evening, at home, Elijah wrapped his arm around her shoulder as they sat on the porch. You didn't just stand up for yourself, he said quietly. You gave this whole town a reason to look in the mirror. Jania leaned her head against his arm. I'm not done yet, Dad. I know, he said. Neither am I. The weeks that followed were filled with change, but not the kind that comes easy. Crestwood High was shifting, yes, but every inch of progress came with resistance. There were still stairs in the hallway, still whispers behind lockers, and not everyone applauded Jania's courage. But something undeniable had started. It began when students formed a new campus group called Crestwood Voices, a student-led forum on inclusion, started by two juniors, Dev Patel and Emily Tran, who had witnessed firsthand how silence can be as damaging as cruelty. They asked Jania to be a founding member. I'm not sure I'm ready for that, she said when Dev approached her during lunch. You already are, he replied. You've been leading us this whole time, you just didn't know it. Reluctantly, Jania agreed. At their first meeting, over 40 students showed up. Black, white, Latino, Asian. Athletes, band kids, honor roll students, and even two of the freshmen who had posted that viral cheer video. They weren't all there to agree, but they were there to listen. That was new. Still, not everyone was ready for reconciliation. During a morning pep rally for the upcoming championship game, Jania took the mic alongside her squad and led a chant that echoed through the gymnasium. The cheers were crisp. Strong. Unified. But she saw them, Tyler and his crew, standing at the back of the gym. Arms folded. Faces unreadable. After the rally, as the students spilled back into the halls, Tyler approached her by the vending machines. You think you changed something? He asked. This school's still the same. No, she said calmly, it's not. Because I'm still here. He scoffed. You're just the flavor of the month. Wait until people forget. Jania looked him dead in the eye. You don't scare me, Tyler. Not anymore. What she didn't realize was that someone had overheard the exchange, Coach Wills. Later that day, Coach pulled Tyler aside after practice and told him plainly, you've got a choice. Grow up, or sit out the final game. Tyler didn't respond right away. But for once, his smirk faded. At home, Jania finally showed her father something she had been working on for weeks, her speech for the school's winter assembly. I want to read this in front of the whole school, she said, heart racing. Not just for me. For every student who's ever felt like they didn't belong here. Elijah took the papers from her and read in silence. When he finished, he looked up with a glint of pride in his eyes. This is powerful, he said. But are you ready for what comes after? She nodded. I'm not hiding anymore. That Friday, the gym was packed again, this time not for sports, but for the annual winter assembly. The principal gave opening remarks, and a few students performed short skits and music pieces. Then came the final speaker. Jania stepped up to the mic in full uniform. Her new uniform. The one her squad had presented to her earlier that week, custom-made, gifted by her teammates with signatures and a single word stitched on the sleeve, resilient. She scanned the crowd. The gym buzzed with restless energy. "My name is Jania Cole," she began, voice strong despite the butterflies in her chest. "You've seen me on the sidelines. You've read my name in the headlines. But today, I want to tell you who I really am." She talked about what happened. Not to blame, but to reveal. She told the truth with raw honesty, about the slurs, the isolation, the humiliation on the field. "But this isn't a story about hate," she continued. "It's a story about choosing courage over silence. About knowing your worth when others try to take it from you. About having the right to be here, no matter what you look like or where you come from." Some students wiped tears. Others sat frozen, expressions unreadable. "And to the ones who stood with me, thank you. To the ones who didn't, there's still time to learn. Because Crestwood doesn't have to stay the same. We can be better." The applause started slow. Then it spread like wildfire. In the crowd, Elijah stood near the back, arms folded, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. He didn't clap. He saluted. That night, Jania lay in bed staring at the ceiling, exhausted but at peace. "You were right, Dad," she whispered when he passed by her door. He stopped, turned. "About what?" "It's not about fighting hate with anger. It's about standing tall enough that they can't ignore you." Elijah nodded slowly. "That's my girl." Crestwood High felt different after the assembly. For the first time, Jania could walk through the hallways without the weight of second-guessing every step. Students nodded at her. Some smiled. A few whispered, but it was no longer with mockery, it was with respect, and maybe even a little admiration. What she had said resonated. But the real test wasn't over. Championship weekend had arrived, and with it came the largest football game of the year. The crowd at Tulsa Memorial Stadium was double its usual size. Alumni returned. Local news vans lined the streets. There was buzz about the game, but also about the girl who had stood up to hate. As Jania warmed up with the squad behind the bleachers, her heart pounded harder than ever. Not because she was nervous about routines. But because Tyler hadn't said a word to her since the assembly, and the game would be their first major appearance on the same field since everything happened. The crowd roared as the team ran out onto the field. The cheerleaders followed, led by Jania, their voices strong and unified. Gold pom-poms shimmered under the stadium lights. And when Jania called the first chant, the crowd responded louder than ever before. In that moment, she felt invincible. But not everyone was cheering. During halftime, as the cheerleaders regrouped near the sideline to prepare for their halftime routine, Jania caught a flash of movement. She turned just in time to see a student, someone not from the squad, walking toward the group holding a large Gatorade cooler. He wasn't supposed to be there. She recognized him immediately. He was a former senior who'd been expelled last semester for harassment. Somehow, he had snuck into the stadium, and what he was holding wasn't Gatorade. Without thinking, Jania sprinted forward. The bucket flew into the air, aimed at the cheer squad, but Jania knocked it sideways just in time. The contents spilled, splashing harmlessly onto the grass. A security guard tackled the boy seconds later. The stadium fell silent. Coach Wills rushed over. "Jania. Are you okay?" She nodded, heart pounding, palms shaking. Tyler stood frozen near the bench, jaw clenched. For the first time, he didn't look smug. He looked ashamed. After the game, which Crestwood narrowly won, Jania sat in the bleachers while the crowd dispersed. Her uniform was grass-stained, and her hair was coming loose, but she had never felt stronger. Tyler approached quietly, his helmet under one arm. He didn't speak at first. Then, you didn't have to do that. You could have let it hit them. I don't pick and choose who I stand up for, she replied. That's not how real leadership works. He looked down at the turf, then back at her. I don't know how to fix what I did. Start by being better, Jania said softly. Even when no one's watching. It wasn't an apology, but it was enough. For now. That night at home, Jania sat on the porch again with Elijah. The air was crisp, the stars scattered like diamonds across the Oklahoma sky. Some of those people may never fully change, she said. Elijah nodded. Maybe not. But some will. And that's how change begins, one ripple at a time. Jania leaned back in the chair, letting silence wrap around them like a warm blanket. I think I'm finally proud of who I am, she whispered. You should be, Elijah said. You've earned every second of that pride. Winter melted into spring, and with it came a fresh wave of energy at Crestwood High. School clubs blossomed, year-end events loomed, and graduation neared for the seniors. But for Jania, the journey hadn't faded, it had evolved. She had become more than a cheerleader. She was now a speaker, a leader, and a voice for students who once felt invisible. She continued her work with Crestwood Voices, even co-leading a panel that brought in local leaders and alumni to talk about race, belonging, and representation. The auditorium had been filled, teachers, parents, and even local press in attendance. But her favorite moment of all happened quietly, one afternoon by the vending machines. A freshman girl approached her, small, shy, glasses fogged from nervous breath. Hi, the girl said, barely above a whisper. My name's Nia. I saw what you did this year. I wanted to try out for cheer next season, but I thought people like me, well. Jania smiled. You thought they wouldn't want you? Nia nodded. Well, Jania said, crouching a little to meet her eyes, lucky for us, that old Crestwood? It's gone. You belong here. And I'll be there at tryouts to cheer you on. Nia beamed. For Jania, it was a full circle moment. Meanwhile, Elijah kept a close watch. He'd taken a short leave from deployment rotations to stay local, opting to instruct recruits at the Naval Training Center in Tulsa. Being home during this chapter of Jania's life felt necessary. One evening, he showed up unexpectedly at school during cheer practice. Jania was teaching a new routine when she noticed some of the squad freeze. She turned, and saw her father standing at the edge of the field, arms crossed, a small smile on his face. She jogged over. You checking my formations now too? She teased. Always, he said, his voice warm. But more importantly, I came to give you this. He handed her a small box. Inside, nestled in dark velvet, was a polished silver compass. It was engraved on the back, for the path you make, not the one you follow. Jania blinked hard. Where did you? It was my father's, Elijah said. He gave it to me when I enlisted. Said every warrior needs a guide. I figure, you're leading more people now than I ever did. She hugged him tightly. It wasn't just a gift. It was a passing of legacy. The next morning, news broke that the boy who tried to humiliate Jania with the cooler incident had been formally charged with trespassing and harassment. Tyler, to Jania's surprise, had given a statement to the authorities condemning the act. He hadn't needed to. And that said more than an apology ever could. At lunch, Tyler sat beside her, not close, not intimate, but near enough that the school took notice. He didn't try to talk to her. He didn't need to. Instead, he stood with her, quite literally. And that, too, was enough. The final weeks of school passed in a blur of finals, photos, and farewells. The hallways that once echoed with mocking chants and cold shoulders now buzzed with anticipation and new energy. Crestwood High was still far from perfect, but it was undeniably different. And so was Jania. On the last day of school, she stood on the football field once more, this time not in uniform, but in a flowing white dress for the end-of-year ceremony. A banner hung across the bleachers, Crestwood Honors Student Leaders. She had been nominated by students and faculty alike, not just for her bravery, but for changing the culture of the school. When her name was called, the crowd erupted in cheers. She walked up to the mic, heart pounding but steady. "I never wanted to be the center of attention," she began. "I just wanted to cheer." A soft laugh rippled through the audience. But sometimes life asks more of us. Sometimes, we have to become the very thing we needed when we were alone. This year, I was pushed, tested, and even humiliated. But I didn't stand back up by myself. I had people who believed in me. My teammates. My classmates. My dad. She looked out into the crowd, locking eyes with Elijah, who gave her a small nod. "And I've learned that real strength isn't how loud you can yell. It's how steady you can stand when others try to silence you." To every student here who's ever felt like they didn't belong, this school belongs to you too. Don't wait for permission to shine. Thunderous applause followed her back to her seat. Even a few teachers wiped tears. After the ceremony, as the sun dipped low and golden over the bleachers, students milled about with families and friends. Jania sat on the field, shoes kicked off, hair messy from hugs. Tyler approached her with a firm look on his face. "Hey," he said. "So. I wrote something." Jania raised an eyebrow. "Really?" He pulled a crumpled paper from his pocket. "It's for the school newspaper," he said. "An article. About what happened. About how I acted. They said they'd print it if I was serious." He looked nervous, actually nervous. "I just figured, maybe it's time I did something right." Jania took the paper and smiled. "You've come a long way." "So have you," he said. Later that evening, Jania and Elijah sat on the back porch under a soft Oklahoma sky, quiet between them. The cicadas buzzed lazily, and a cool breeze whispered through the trees. "Dad," she said after a while. "Yeah. Did you ever feel, like everything you went through in the SEALs, like it wasn't for you, but for someone else?" He nodded. "Every mission. Every sacrifice. I did it so people like you could have space to be more than what the world expects." Jania leaned her head on his shoulder. "I think I understand that now." He looked down at her, pride etched deep in the lines of his face. "You were never just a cheerleader, Jania. You were always a leader." She closed her eyes, letting the words sink in like warmth. She had been tested, broken, rebuilt, and somewhere in that process, she had become unstoppable. Jania's story isn't just about school bullying. It's about rising above hate, leading with dignity, and daring to stay true to who you are, even when the world tells you otherwise. As her father said, you don't fight with fists. You fight with presence. If her journey moved you, if you've ever felt out of place, or if you've ever had to fight for your right to belong, share this video. Someone needs to hear it. Subscribe to True Echo for more real, raw, and powerful stories that prove, courage always echoes louder than hate.